Good morning, Digit fam. Adam Doud here, closing out our holiday-shortened week with all the tech news you need to know. Next week is CES, so you can bet we'll be on top of everything happening at the show. Android Authority has a great team on the ground, so we'll be getting the skinny straight from the source. And speaking of CES, we've got some early info for you, so let's get to it. It is January 3rd, 2020, and this is your Digit Daily. OnePlus shed some light on its concept phone that it's bringing to CES. Guess they just couldn't wait until Christmas morning to unwrap that gift, eh? And the concept is, well, it's neat, but it's certainly nothing mind-blowing. What we're looking at here is an electrochromic glass covering the rear cameras of the phone. The effect is, when you're not using the cameras, the glass goes from clear to black, effectively hiding the cameras from view. Electrochromatic glass works by applying an electric charge to turn it black. It's not a new concept. My dad used to be a contractor, and he worked downtown in some ultra high-end condos. Think Oprah money. And while he was there, he saw an entire glass wall that turned black with the flip of a switch. Same idea here, but obviously much smaller and thinner glass. But my dad's experience was back in the 90s. Fast forward to today, and this tech is being used in airplanes to block out the sun on windows. This helps reduce weight and bulk by eliminating those pesky plastic shades. It's also used to power the sunroof on some ultra high-end McLaren cars. And now we see the connections. OnePlus has a history with McLaren, the racing car company, who also makes ultra high-end cars. Once again, think Oprah money. OnePlus CEO Pete Lau was checking out a McLaren factory when he saw the sunroof design and said, So, to be clear, this is going to be used on rear cameras. We saw Oppo working on a disappearing front camera in order to remove the notch. All this does is presumably remove the rear cameras from sight. So in some ways it's like, and in other ways it's like, Don't get me wrong, this is a neat idea. Making the rear cameras disappear could really be slick, making the back of the phone look more beautiful and attractive to trypophobics, getting rid of all those nasty holes. It'll also help differentiate smartphones in a crowd that is becoming increasingly difficult to differentiate in. But honestly, this is kind of a party trick that won't do much to sell a phone. It's not like someone's going to be in a T-Mobile store and be all like, oh, I don't have to look at the cameras all the time? Well, forget this iPhone, I want this one. Although, in the case of the ugly camera module on the iPhone, I'm actually kind of starting to see OnePlus's point here, so touche. Of course, it also needs to be mentioned that only by applying a current to the glass does it make it turn black, which means, yes, power, as in using power to do anything more than a normal smartphone, which could adversely affect battery life on the phone. That makes me nervous. Unless, of course, this is like an e-ink thing, and once the black is turned on, it stays on free of power until it changes the state again. Whatever the case, this is a concept phone, so it's not like it'll be shipping it on the OnePlus 8, we hope. This just isn't as exciting as something like AR glasses, but it could be neat. We'll wait until we go hands-on before we pass any judgments, but for now, let's head into the Roundup! A security bug, yeah, we'll call it a bug, in Xiaomi security cameras caused one user with a Google Nest Hub smart screen to receive a still from other Xiaomi security cameras that weren't his, as in he was able to see stills from other cameras inside other homes. This included a baby sleeping and a gentleman sitting in a chair, and whoops. This comes at a really bad time when Wi-Fi security devices are under a lot of scrutiny, particularly those from Ring. Google very quickly disabled the ability to connect a Xiaomi camera, and Xiaomi indicated in an email that the bug has been fixed, but still, if there was any possibility I'd put a Wi-Fi connected camera in my home, these past few weeks have utterly eliminated that. Yikes, with a capital yikes. Ross Lejeunesse used to be Google's head of international relations. Basically, he was in charge of working with foreign entities on various projects, including China. And before we get into this, it's important to understand that the Chinese government wants to control as much information as possible, to the point of wanting to approve points of interest before inserting them into Google Maps. This is part of that whole Dragonfly censored search engine for China project that Google was working on, but isn't working on anymore. at least we don't think so. It's a fairly long read, but the gist of it is, Google's motto used to be, don't be evil. But when Google goes up against countries like China, Iran, and others whose populations aren't as dependent on Google's tech, Google is going to lose. TechCrunch argues as much, and unfortunately for Google, and Shutterstock, and Microsoft Azure, and other tech companies, this is becoming a binary decision. Either play by a country's rules and accept the human rights violations, or get out. Recently, it seems, at least according to Ross, Google has decided that profit is more important than whether or not to be evil, and while it would be nice to see it hold out, it's not particularly surprising to see them trying to toe the line, while at the same time absorbing human rights issues. It sucks, but it's not surprising. Oh, and by the way, La Jeunesse is also running for a Democratic Senate seat, which I'm sure had nothing to do with the timing of this Medium post. LG showed off some more hints about its next line of TVs that will be showing off at CES. Real 8K is the theme here, meaning we're entering an era when 4K TVs are for commoners. Of course, there isn't much 8K content available just yet, so chicken and egg strikes again, but we'll be certain to learn more about this coming week at CES. The good news is, that should drive down the cost of 4K TVs, and maybe without having to give up your data to do it. Nah, I'm just kidding, you'll still have to give up your data. And finally, Lifehacker lays out why empty seats and upgraded sections of planes stay empty. Basically, you're boarding a flight with your economy class ticket and notice some empty seats in first class. Then later, when you're flying somewhere over Boise, you notice the same seats are still empty. Well, why can't you just sit down? Well, according to the airlines, you're kind of stealing a seat that you didn't pay for, which is kind of true. Some will use the logic that, well, if it's empty, why not let a few people move up and give them a better experience? Well, first of all, for every 2 people they move to first class, there will be 40 or so that didn't move. Where's their better experience? Maybe you're hoping to win the airline lottery, but airlines think it's better that everyone just, get what they pay for. It's hard to argue with that logic, but speaking as someone who once was upgraded from economy to first class, and that was because the plane had a total of 8 passengers on it, first class is really nice. And sure, I'd love to get some more leg room and butt room and a glass of champagne, but if I can't have it, ain't no one having it. So that's going to do it for today's Digit Daily. If you'd like to learn more about any of these stories, check out the links in the show notes and subscribe to our daily newsletter on Digit.com. And if you like what you heard, subscribe, leave a review, and don't forget to tell your friends about DigitDailyPod.com. Once again, I'm Adam Doud, Dead Technology on Twitter, and we'll talk again on Monday.